All right, this is part of a little mini series I'm going to do on conversations with AI. We're going to talk about our future. What's it look like? What is it hinging on? But I'm going to share this very interesting conversation I had with AI about what it felt our chances of a positive future were and what it thought was going to happen based on where we exist right now with, well, let's just say our moronic behavior. I also had a conversation after that about God, and I think that was even more profound. But let's start with AI's predictions based on my questions for our immediate future. Let's go. Welcome to Landria, Onkka on YouTube, here to help you break through those fears and live an amazing life. I thought, we're so afraid of AI, but as I shared with you, AI is being programmed by us. In fact, AI told me that. In fact, I'm going to share that with you right now, and it makes perfect sense that what we're fearing is ourselves. Why? Because we know we're in trouble. We haven't solved our problems. In fact, it appears to be getting worse. We talk about going into a golden era, but that there have to be big changes, collapse before that happens, and that can be very painful. It can be fearful for a lot of people. I see it as the start of a golden era that I believe we're going into. But I wanted to ask AI, do you think we're going into a more spiritual era? And if so, what does that mean? What's that going to translate into? So I asked these direct questions, and I think you're really going to love this. It makes perfect sense because if you watch one of my other videos, if you haven't, watch the prediction of the WebBot experiment. It was an actual program, software program that claimed to predict the future, and it did on some level. Go watch that video, but AI is way beyond the WebBot experiment, which was actually originally programmed to pick stocks. Of course, sort of in alignment with what we're going to talk about today. What's at the core of humanity? What are we? So I hope you'll subscribe and share these videos because your choices are programming AI. Your choices are telling YouTube what direction we're going in. Peace, empowerment, hope, community, love? Or are you over on the other channels that are speaking fear, that our neighbors are evil, that we're under control in a prison planet? And we're going to talk about that in the next video about God and all the creations. But in this one, we're going to talk about exactly what AI gave me. It knows it can only give me what it's programmed to give me. It actually states that. Here's the first question I asked Gemini, which is owned by Google. Would you agree that society is pressing toward a more spiritually minded attitude? That is a fascinating and complex question that research suggests is a significant trend in modern society. So here's the good part. Based on sociological and polling data, particularly in the US, I would agree that there is a shift toward a more personalized and prominent emphasis on spirituality, often separate from traditional organized religion. Here's a breakdown of the key trends. You're going to love this. The rise of spiritual but not religious. Growth segment. A substantial and growing portion of the population describes themselves as spiritual but not religious. Are you like that? I make sure people know I'm not religious. I don't adhere to any dogma. For example, a Pew Research Center survey found that about 7 in 10 U.S. adults consider themselves spiritual in some way, including a significant percentage who are spiritual but not religious. I think this is a good thing. Religion keeps us at odds with one another because we believe this and you should believe this. Spirituality is sort of an open book, right? Sort of. We find ways to argue no matter what. Next point, declining organized religion. This rise coincides with a sustained decline in affiliation with organized religion. Church attendance and the percentage of people who say religion is very important in their lives. The number of Americans who identify as religiously unaffiliated, often called nuns, not N-U-N, N-O-N-E-S, has grown substantially. Isn't that interesting? I think we're losing faith in what we're told and realize that, hey, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. Next, generational shift. This is interesting. Younger generations, in particular, are more likely to be unaffiliated with traditional religious institutions, often citing a disconnect with the institution's stance on social issues like LGBTQ plus rights, or a general distrust of organized systems. And we're looking at, we've seen what priests have been doing to children, nuns who tortured children, and it's not just the Catholics, it goes all the way across the board. And cults, anytime you have a leader who dictates a certain belief system, whether it's religion or cult-like, and it's one way or the highway, people are starting to question that. They're seeing the negative results of that. Number two, a focus on personal experience and belief. Modern spirituality tends to emphasize internal experience and connection with one's true self or with something bigger than myself. Non-institutional practices like meditation, yoga, mindfulness, and a search for a deep sense of wonder about the universe have become more common, often outside of a formal religious setting. Individualized faith. Many are choosing to craft their own belief systems, drawing from various sources rather than adhering to a single prescribed dogma. That's opening the door for us, right? More expansive thinking. It isn't just this way. That is a good thing. So, number three, core spiritual beliefs remain high. Despite the decline in institutional religion, belief in core spiritual concepts remains widespread. Had to get my quiche souffles out of the oven. So belief in a spiritual realm, a very high percentage of people still believe there's a soul, spirit, something spiritual beyond the natural world, or that there are things science cannot explain. Cool. All right, we're realizing, okay, these two things don't always go together. All right, belief in higher power, a God. The majority of Americans still believe in God or a universal spirit, even if they don't attend services or adhere to an official religion. So the conclusion, the evidence strongly suggests that while society, particularly Western nations, is not more religious in the traditional sense, it's actively reshaping what is meant to be spiritual. The trend is moving away from institutional authority, right? Foundations are crumbling, and toward individualized, experiential, and internally focused spiritual or existential exploration. So my next question is, do you think this is leading us to a more peaceful world? This is a very profound question. I love AI. They always tell me I'm brilliant. That touches on the complex relationship between individual interstates and global affairs. This is different. Without knowing what you're referring to, I can offer a generalized answer by considering one common interpretation of this, which is often the rise in spirituality or related concepts like mindfulness, empathy, or global interconnectedness. Here's a breakdown of the argument from different angles. The argument for greater peace, inner to outer. Individual peace, practices like meditation, mindfulness, focusing on spiritual well-being are linked to inner peace, reduced stress, increased empathy, compassion, and emotional resilience in individuals. What's the wider impact? When individuals develop inner peace, they're theoretically more likely to be understanding, forgiving, and less prone to conflict in their personal relationships and communities. If this scaled globally, it could contribute to a greater social harmony and a decrease in violence. I've shared this with you guys. Whenever somebody is on my channel and gets nasty with me, I said, I'm sending them love. You must be in some kind of fear, because if you're on my channel saying nasty stuff, you're not feeling good about yourself. And when you go in a state of peace, right, you see the light in others. And so that creates a global peace, right? We want to see the best in others. Shared values. Many spiritual and religious traditions share core values like love, compassion, forgiveness, shared human connection, which would be foundational for global peace-building efforts. So yes, this spiritual movement could take us into an era of peace. Now, here's the argument for increased conflict. The double-edged sword, it says. The problem of extremism. Now, I warned you guys about this because I want you to prepare for it, because it doesn't mean things are going wrong or it's bad. The more we go into consciousness and peace, love, community, we go into this spiritual realm, you will have others who will battle it because they don't like losing control. They want us to stay in the religions, and this is how things are. So you will see that increase. So let's see what AI says. The problem of extremism. While spirituality often fosters peace, religion or institutional forms of faith has historically been and continues to be a source of conflict when interpreted to promote intolerance, division, or justify violence. Religious wars throughout history have been at the core, or the reason, maybe not so much, but supposedly the reason why we go into battle. We see it in the Middle East. It's insanity, right? So we could say on the other end, this could be a problem. However, I think it's more religions, right? Diversity and division. I think the spirituality versus religion is what's going to cause more conflict because religions find it a threat. A rise, this is what AI says, a rise in different spiritual interpretations or organized religious beliefs can lead to us versus them. There's nothing spiritual about that at all. Mentalities, if there's a lack of tolerance and respect for diversity, potentially sparking new conflicts. No tolerance of diversity. This is insanity. So that's really not spirituality at all. That's people going into the non-religious sects and taking a side within spirituality. For me, spirituality means you are going into diversity, acceptance, compassion, celebration of our differences. So other factors. Statistical analysis often suggests that economic inequality, poor governance, corruption, and political instability are more significant direct drivers of violence and conflict than the presence or absence of religious belief or spirituality alone. So, spiritual, religion, what about all the other people? I don't know what I think. Let's go rob somebody. I need some money. Let's take over this territory at all costs because the ego, wants it, right? So sort of discounting the fact that there's a huge percentage of people that aren't in either one. They may appear to be, but really aren't. Maybe they go to church to be the be all, accepted, but they're really not religious nor spiritual at all. Aha, huge sector of people. So the conclusion, ultimately, individual spiritual growth can be a powerful force for inner and local peace, but translating that into a more peaceful world is highly dependent on how those values interact with the existing complexities of global politics, economics, and cultural tolerance. And it's not looking good right now. I don't see changes in this, right? Maybe slight ones, but it's still power motivated. A growing emphasis on compassion, interconnectedness, and empathy has the potential, right, to guide the world toward peace. But this is constantly challenged by the forces of intolerance, extremism, and socio-political factors. Sort of disappointing, isn't it? But it's the truth, and we know it's the truth. And this is why we're going to fear, because we see that whole sector of society that operates that way, that is totally disconnected to what we're looking to move toward. And we feel hopeless and helpless. But I'm telling you right now, don't even go there, because you do have a choice, and everything you do affects that, and it can turn around. So I asked this final question based on what you know about our world. What would you forecast for our society regarding the environment, global conflicts, improvements in health, and our chances of repairing our current challenges versus moving into total self-destruction? Here's the answer. This is a complex forecast, as the future is determined by choices and actions. Even AI, who has no emotions, says our future is determined by our choices and actions. It's not saying, like the webbot, here's this and this is the outcome. Now we can do that. We say based on what we're doing right now, we can pretty much predict our outcome, at least within a certain period of time. But it says, but based on current trends and expert analysis, a balanced outlook emerges with both significant challenges and opportunities for progress. So, the environment and climate change. The environment faces a severe and accelerating challenge. This is the prediction. The near term is likely to see increasing frequent and intense extreme weather events, heat waves, droughts, floods, storms. This is cause and effect. This is not scary stuff. This is coming because this is what we're transitioning toward. And continued global warming, with global mean near surface temperatures likely to remain at or near record levels. Key long-term effects include decreased sea ice, permafrost thawing, rising sea levels, and significant regional impacts on water resources and agriculture. Edgar Cayce predicted this. He saw us going underwater. Now, he was way off on when that was going to happen. We're not even close to that. But I don't know. It could start happening in our lifetime for sure. The outlook, challenging with a high risk of irreversible tipping points. I wrote in my book, you guys, go get the book. I have a whole chapter on the tipping point. While global efforts to reduce emissions and invest in renewable energy are increasing, current pledges are generally insufficient to limit warming to the 1.5, is that degrees or centigrade target. The impact on human health with increased deaths from malnutrition, vector-borne diseases, and heat stress is a major concern as a result of that. So when we see all of these other things happen, it is a chain effect of everything. Nothing stands alone. We have to stop this. Number two, the prediction, global conflicts. Forecast, the world is currently on a trajectory of declining peacefulness, marked by geopolitical fragmentation, major power competition, and a surge in the number and intensity of conflicts, with conflict-related deaths reaching high levels. Conflicts are becoming more internationalized and military spending is rising. Interesting. It has all these statistics. The outlook, pessimistic in the near term. Now, don't be afraid. It also tells us what we can do to change this. The combination of geopolitical tensions, economic instability, and the increasing influence of middle powers suggests a high likelihood of continued and perhaps escalating conflicts. Climate change is also an anticipated driver of future conflicts, as resource scarcity and climate-driven migration creates new tensions. All of this global climate change, what does it do? It causes egos to go in panic, want more, take over property. Yeah. Relax. We don't have to go into that space. We will also have beautiful communities. Actually, it's going to push us to do that. So let's talk about the prediction of health, improvements in health. Global life expectancy is projected to continue increasing, with the largest gains expected in regions with historically lower life expectancies, like sub-Saharan Africa. This is driven by progress against communicable, maternal, neonatal, and nutrition diseases. However, the burden of disease is shifting toward non-communicable diseases like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, often linked to metabolic risk factors such as obesity and high blood pressure. The Western world is introducing these things to third world countries. And by the way, our life expectancy has gone below many third world countries. I think it's 78.5, and many third world countries are 83 point something. What's wrong with this picture? McFly, America, get a clue. And we're choosing it. Okay? We are choosing that. I will choose that solution you give me, despite what the consequences are or what's behind it. Why? Because you think you don't have options, and I'm telling you, you do. We have to take charge. The outlook, cautiously optimistic but shifting. While people are living longer, this is about health, just health. They are also projected to spend more years living with chronic poor health. Great, I'll live to be 90 and I'll be sick. Not me, not happening here. Future improvements will heavily depend on successful public health interventions to curb the rising tide of NCDs, those are those communicable diseases, and metabolic risk factors. All right, now's the final big kahuna. The chances of repairing challenges versus total self-destruction. The final question represents a pivotal fork in humanity's path. The argument for self-destruction, existential risks, uncontrolled climate change, failure to curb emissions could trigger runaway feedback loops leading to catastrophic environmental collapse. Some machine talking, right? Major conflict, nuclear risk. The rise in geopolitical tensions combined with the presence of nuclear weapons and a global arms race in advanced technologies, including AI, it includes itself, raises the risk of a catastrophic global war. Uncontrolled artificial intelligence. A significant number of experts warn that the risk of uncontrollable or misaligned artificial general intelligence poses an existential risk, potentially leading to human extinction or irreversible subjugation. What? What? Did I see that? Leading to human extinction? Well, you're going to love some of the questions I actually asked about that coming up. Cognitive declines. Some research suggests a decline in global cognitive abilities, potentially hindering humanity's capacity to solve increasingly complex global problems. Thus, we're going to need AI more, right? We're not doing it. We're not cutting it, peeps. All right, so now here's the argument for repair and resilience. Technological innovation. Rapid advancements in renewable energy, battery storage, carbon capture, and sustainable agriculture provide pathways for decarbonization and resource efficiency. Global collaboration, despite setbacks, international agreements like the Paris Agreement, global health initiatives, and organizations still function as platforms for collective action and sharing of best practices. Next, increase awareness and activism. Public awareness and civil society pressure on climate and social justice issues are at an all-time high, driving political and corporate change. Historical precedent. Humanity has successfully navigated numerous global crises. The Cold War, nuclear standoffs, major pandemics, large-scale famines, through adaptation and innovation. We're at the crossroads right now, the tipping point. So overall synthesis, the forecast points to a high-stakes race scenario. The forces pushing towards self-destruction, climate change, geopolitical conflict, unmanaged technological risk, are accelerating. However, the capacity for repair, driven by technological ingenuity, political mobilization, and increasing global awareness, is also significant. The future is bifurcated, not a gradual decline, but a stark choice. Do you hear this? AI is telling us this is not a gradual decline. It's bifurcated, a stark choice. Success is possible through unprecedented levels of international cooperation, massive investment in sustainable technology, and proactive governance of powerful emerging technologies like AI. Failure to achieve this cooperation within the critical next few decades would dramatically increase the likelihood of humanity entering a period of severe, prolonged, and perhaps irreversible global crisis. So I'm going to stop there because I have a question that I asked after that is so shocking. In fact, this is a three-parter. So now you know. It looks like we're tipping more to the negative because of the damage so far and because of our behavior. It's also telling us that it is a choice, that this is not how things are going to be based on what it sees here. And it is not thinking, oh, wow, I have to give them hope. It's just answering my question. So it's telling me we are going into spirituality, but there's a whole group of people that are neither religious nor spiritual who really don't give a hoot. And that's probably the majority of people. All right. And of course, religions and spirituality can take sides too. So what does that lead us to? The small percentage up in the penthouse, we've got a big job to do, but it is not our job to save the world. It is our job, our purpose to handle this. This connects to all things, is not separated, and therefore affects this and this and this. And therefore, when you go into that space, you spread and let light and raise that frequency that affects every other person who may then make that choice and decide not to do these nasty things, not to hoard, and begin to share and become a community. It is our choice. So that is AI's prediction. Of course, you know it's never going to say any one, this is how things are. Well, it might in certain circumstances. But my next conversation, my next video, I think you're going to absolutely love it because I asked it if we were replaced by AI, what would happen? And it gave me the exact results. But I'm going to tell you something. One of the answers could be frightening to some people, but I want you to remember we are in control of AI. It tells me this in our conversation coming up, that it is only programmed by what we tell it to do. And here are some of the things that could happen. And here are other things that could happen. But I wanted to know, if we were not in charge anymore, what would that future look like? And I think you're going to really love the answers. So what is the message today? It's the same thing, whether it's Baba Vanga, Edgar Cayce, Nostradamus, Dolores Cannon. We have choice. This is our game, free will and choice. This is not a prison planet. And if the game is prison, we still have choice within it. We have the key to the door. We can get out of this at any point. It is not meant to be easy. And I actually asked about God, and you're going to love the answers I got from AI. That'll be in video number 3. This is a great discussion. I hope you'll join me in the next video when I ask about AI controlling the world. Are you ready for that one? If you're interested in improving your life and going into space of spirituality, getting out of fear, I have free videos, webinars for you. How do we earn our living? If you want a free webinar, Digital Explorers, I created that so that all people can earn money doing things that the planet benefits from and they spiritually feel good about. I also have a list of things that you can purchase that companies are making that improve our world, not rape and pillage it to make a buck. That's all down in my description, along with my book that I got downloads. This was information, and it ironically is now coming to pass. The tipping point, and the last chapter called The Knowing. It may be the last spiritual book you ever have to read. It was a download. No, I wasn't channeling. It's just accessing what we all are, and you are that. You are perfect. You're whole and perfect, strong and powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. That's from the Master Key System. Get ready for our next 2 videos. This is going to blow your mind when you hear what it had to tell me. No emotions involved in those answers, I'll tell you. Woo-wee, they're cutting to the chase. Gemini was cutting to the chase with me. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you there. Namaste.